Winter,
Yes.
what do you call an immigrant to Sweden?
I don't know.
An artificial sweetener. Like you could add it to your
No, you can't.
your drinks.
No, you can't.
It's a Splenda.
No.
Hungry Squared, bringing you the best food talk anywhere.
Welcome to the Hungry Squared podcast, where the brain and belly meet. I'm Lee from Bee's Knees Waffles.
And I'm Winter from theredparty.com. Thanks, Lee, for coming on today.
Hey, thank you for having me.
This week, we are talking about crayfish.
Or is it crawfish?
No, it's crayfish.
Or crawdads.
Or mud bugs. This is part 1 of our series on crayfish/crawfish. And we're going to be talking to some friends from Sweden and who have lived in Sweden. Let's talk about it. Lee. Hey.
Hello.
Thanks for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you.
We decided to do something a little different for this next 2 episodes about crawfish. So Lee is going to be my co-host today, and which I am always pretty excited about. He looks so excited, you guys. You don't even know.
She likes it because it makes her sound smart.
Lee, come on.
When you have an idiot across from you, it's easy to sound smart, dear.
No. Lee, you're smart too. Anyway.
That's what my mom always told me, but nobody ever believed her either.
Well, how has your week been?
It's been good. It has been good.
What did you eat anything fun this week or that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so there's a salad that I really do like, and it's from a restaurant I used to work at. And the salad is sort of a shrimp and sweet potato or a yam. I don't know. What is it?
I think it's a sweet potato, technically.
Yeah, the sweet potato. Grapefruit, shrimp, pistachios.
Spinach.
Spinach, and then it's got like a lemon dressing. Really simple, but really fresh.
Yeah, it was really good. It's an excellent little salad there.
So we made it at home. I thought it was good.
It was really good. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, you can put one of those together fairly easily. I think though you did purchase a lemon dressing of some sort. It was okay.
It was okay.
It wasn't the best. It wasn't my favorite. It was still good. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I think you've made other ones that have been like a homemade one.
Well, thank you.
I'm not complaining or anything. You made it for me.
Thank you. As I'm bobbing my head like,
Lee, you got to say yes.
What, can't you guys see me through your headphones? I'm bobbing my head. Thank you. All right. Winter, did you eat anything good, fun, fancy, or bad?
I ate some delicious tomatoes.
Oh.
So we have I think we've talked about this before in the past, but we have a little square foot garden just around the other side of our apartment, and we decided to plant. Well, we got some starts from a friend, our vegan friend actually, and one of them was the Mexican midget cherry tomatoes, and those have been turning red. We have been able to harvest some of those this week, and they have been delicious. And then we also had I think they're called, I always forget what they're called, Lee. I think they're the super sweet 100, and they really are super sweet. And so those one also are little cherry tomatoes. And Lucy will go out and she will pick all of them and eat all of them if I told her not to eat all of them. So she calms it down when I tell her to put it in the bowl.
And Winter, will you tell everybody how Lucy says tomatoes?
Tamamo or something like that.
Tamamo.
She says that way because we're like, no, it's not that way. And she thinks it's funny, so she'll say it wrong purposefully.
She's a jokester.
Yeah, she is kind of. But she loves her tomatoes. So that's what I've been eating, and it's been delicious. And I expect many more we'll be harvesting for many more weeks. It's been fun.
I don't expect to eat a lot because Lucy and Winter eat quite a bit.
Yeah, we do. Don't mess with our tomatoes.
Tamamo. And now for the main course. All right, let's get down to our first topic at hand. Crayfish?
Crayfish.
What exactly are you and I talking about?
Okay.
About crayfish?
So, first of all, we're gonna be doing a little something in conjunction with IKEA, and so we are recording a couple of episodes regarding crayfish. And so on this episode, and I hope you guys will stay on to listen to this interview we have with several of our friends, and because we have one person that's from Sweden, and then we have everybody else that they've lived in Sweden at some point in time or another, and they talk about I don't know how to say it, Lee. It's like the Crayfish festival or Crayfish party, right?
Yeah, I looked up exactly how to say it, but it was like Kraskvik or something like that.
It was something.
My Swedish is very lacking.
I just don't. Yeah. So we're gonna be. So
That's my Swedish.
You're just doing the Muppet Swedish chef. Yep. Okay. So, but before we get started with that interview, which is so interesting because I'm like, once again, I did not know very much about how this was a big thing in Sweden. Before we get started though, what is a crawfish or what is a crayfish, Lee?
So crayfish is pretty much a freshwater lobster. It's of the same family as of the crustacean family or genus, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But they are smaller than lobsters. They grow, I don't know, maybe...
I think they said about 6 inches is generally average.
6 inches would be a normal size.
Yeah.
No, my family, we've gone crayfish hunting. I like it.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, so they're just a little fresh water. You catch them in lakes and streams.
And Lee, so I grew up calling them crawfish.
Oh, okay.
So it was a little surprising today, too, as you'll hear in this interview, that everybody referred to them at this interview as crayfish versus crawfish.
Yeah, I grew up calling them crawdads.
Crawdads, yes. I've called them crawdads as well. So in doing a little bit of research ahead of this, we both found out that crayfish, the term crayfish, comes from an old French word, escrevisse?
Something like that.
I'm sorry, you guys. I don't know French. So
part of my French.
Part of my French is pretty bad. So, and then the American variant of that is crawfish. But then also, crayfish can also be known locally. People will call them lobsters because they look just like lobsters.
Freshwater lobster.
Crawdads, like you said, Lee. Mud bugs. And I think Sharon and Ike are going to be talking about mud bugs on our next episode. And I've never heard this term before, but yabbies.
Yabbies.
Have you heard that before?
I have not
never
yabby.
Heard that before. So I think that was quite impressive. So, like when we talked about lobsters and other seafood, that episode, I don't know if you remember that one, Lee.
I do.
Yeah, I think you had to edit it. I'm sorry.
No, I am.
So it has kind of the same thing as a lobster, but it's a decapod crustacean and has up to 20 body segments, and they're grouped into 2 different parts.
So you have the front half, and then you have the tail half.
Yep. So there's the cephalothorax, which is the front half. The cephalo...
Bless you.
...is meaning head. And then the thorax is kind of the
body.
There was thoracic area, and then the abdomen is kind of the back end. So, and then you probably have seen those little appendages that they have. I believe that they have 2 larger
pincher claws
in the front. But yeah, so
now, Winter, did you ever grow up hunting crawdads?
Surely we did. Mm-hmm.
And I loved it. 2 ways we did it: either you get a cup and you put it behind it, and then you scare the crawfish into the cup.
Back into it.
Or you pinch it right
on the abdomen.
On the thorax
part.
Right behind the pincher claws. And you can sneak up right behind it and pinch it.
Now, Lee, I think Sharon and Ike are going to be talking about this a little bit more about how to catch them, but I'm curious. Well, but I am curious. We always did it at night.
Yeah, we always did it at night.
I don't know why we did it.
With a night. You did it with a flashlight, and you did it at night.
Yeah, okay. So I'm curious to see how Sharon and Ike do it. So anyway, just to let you know that if you want to take notice of this episode and next week's episode, because we are going to create a quiz that will be presented at one of the IKEA Swedish crayfish party, and the person that gets the most correct out of that will win one of their baskets that they're going to give away at those events. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Is there anything else you want to say?
Yes, this is your cheat sheet.
Yes.
If you want to win, and we know all of you want to be winners, listen to these cheat sheets.
So this episode and next episode. And then, like I said, we're excited to have our friends on today to talk about the Swedish crayfish party. We hope you enjoy it. We are so excited to be here today. I actually have Lee here with me. He's going to be my co-host.
Hello.
And we have actually 4 special guests. We're really excited about this because we know nothing about the Swedish crayfish parties that they have in Sweden. So first up, we have Marcus and Deanne Carlson, and we'll tell you a little bit more about them as we get talking to them. But Marcus and Deanne, welcome.
Good to be here.
Thank you.
And then on the other end of the table, we have Brandon and Julianne Lake. They are good friends of ours, and we're excited for them to join us as well.
Thanks for having us.
Happy to be here.
So one of the things that we were talking about originally was, well, actually, let's start at the very beginning. The Lakes, Brandon and Julianne, invited us to a party several years back, and it was a crayfish party. And we're like, excuse me? So they lived in Stockholm for several years while they were going to school, and they invited us to a crayfish party, and we had no idea that was a thing. And so we were very excited when they invited us, and it was quite fun. We had crayfish, there was other cheeses and breads and such, and we had to wear hats. We had to wear bibs, and it was a lot of fun. So it was one of those things where we're like, we have to circle around and talk about this. So I'm going to open it up to everybody here. What is up with this crayfish party? Like, where does it originate, first of all? Maybe I can maybe ask Marcus, because he is the native Swede here in the group.
Okay, I'll try to explain. So there's a lot of traditions in Sweden, I'm sure other countries as well, where you don't necessarily think about where they're from. So you do it every year, but you don't really know all the details. But anyway, crayfish parties happen throughout all of August and I guess the early parts of September. It's because that's when the crayfish are fished. What you call it? But that's when the season is for crayfish. So I think they've been doing it for a really long time at places in Sweden where they have fished for crawfish or crayfish. But it became big, I think, in the 60s in Sweden when you could start to import crayfish from really all over the world, because the Swedish crayfish supply just isn't big enough.
Now, I have a quick question. Crayfish, are they freshwater or saltwater?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say both. So on the west coast of Sweden, they'll be salty. But then in the inlands, if they're coming from lakes or whatever, no pun intended, they will be freshwater. But they're all cooked exactly the same. And so they're served cold, and they're cooked in kind of a salty solution that has lots of dill in it. Okay. So there's a lot of dill flavor, and they're served cold.
Okay, so just a quick follow-up question. Was there any reason why they had it specifically in August and September? Was it largely because they harvested at that time, or was there like a mid-autumn festival or something of that nature at that time?
So my understanding is that they were harvested in the fall. So as they were harvested, you wanted to eat them fresh. And so they would do the parties when they harvested them. And
they were, I'm assuming, big enough too at that time to be harvested.
And I'd also read that they had restrictions in Sweden on how much you could harvest for a time, or just the populations of the crayfish there weren't very high. So they started recently, in recent decades, bringing them from China, Turkey. Is that correct?
Right. So initially it was really the only people that would do crayfish parties were people that were either living close to where they were harvested or worked with harvesting crayfish. And then in the early 1900s, there was a crayfish famine that killed a lot of the crayfish in Sweden, and so the interest kind of dipped down. But then I think it was maybe probably in the 50s and 60s where you could start importing foods. They would import crayfish from China, from Turkey, frozen, and then it really sort of picked up speed because then it was much easier to buy them. They were cheaper, and also, like you said, there was this law. I think it was up until the mid 90s saying that you couldn't harvest crayfish like before early August or something. And then obviously in the winter they die off. And so you have to give them that full summer to kind of grow.
So this is going to sound ignorant, but my perception of Sweden is you got about 3 days of summer and then the rest is it's frozen over.
That's a good summer.
It's a good summer, a 3-day summer. All right. So August and September, is that starting to get into its changing of the season? August is hot here. How is it? What are seasons in Sweden?
So you're not too far off. I mean, summer's short and unpredictable. Sometimes, you'll go through the whole year waiting for summer. Summer comes along and it's just raining the whole year or the whole summer. So when summer comes along, people have been anticipating that the whole year. And so you get a lot of time off from work and you try to cram in a lot of vacation and festivals during summer. So the Crayfish parties becomes kind of like the last sort of summer celebration. August nights are still nice. I mean, you might need like a thin jacket or a coat, but it's still pretty and the sun's up fairly late. It's not like Utah where it's 85 degrees, but it'll be in the upper 50s, 60s.
What were you saying, Julianne?
Going back to the source of crayfish in Sweden, I do remember though when we were living there that there was a difference in price point between the Swedish crayfish, which were considered, of course, preferred, preferably they would favor the Swedish crayfish in these parties over the Chinese and the Turkish frozen ones because they came fresh.
Right. No, you're right.
It was a specialty, right?
Yeah, there's a big difference in price. And at the beginning of every season, every major newspaper will have a panel of experts that will go through this season's supply of crayfish from the different manufacturers and the different regions and taste them and give ratings and say, okay, this year the jumbo crayfish from China are really lousy, or the Turkish one's really good this year. So every year it kind of changes, but the Swedish ones are always held in very high esteem, but they're tough to get, really expensive, and they're typically smaller than some other ones.
That is so interesting. Let's delve a little bit more into this party. You have the crayfish. It's in dill, and I feel like dill is a very common seasoning in Swedish cuisine. Is it just because it's plentiful? Do you know why?
It is. I don't know why, honestly, why they use it so much. They do say that it does have a lot of medicinal properties and health benefits with dill, but it is definitely, like I know with like seal and different fish, it is definitely one of the more popular herbs.
I don't know why. I would assume it's because it's probably one of the few things that grow in Sweden, and probably grows really easily and really fast.
Dill with salmon.
Yeah, and it
just
goes really
herring.
well with fish.
Yeah.
So we've just been, conditioned to always want dill with our fish or with our seafood.
Gotcha. Okay.
But there are dill flavored chips as well.
Yes, there are.
So now that you have been in Utah for a while, do you have an inner craving for dill? Or are you like, man, this oregano is awesome. Basil, who would have thought this had such a flavor?
Yeah, we do. So we have to have dried. So we make our own cured salmon, and we'll put dried dill on it. But if you put dried dill with some water, it just kind of loosens up. So we'll put dill in our food, not as much as at home, but we still have a supply at home.
I think that's what I definitely need to add into our garden. Our herb garden is dill. Make sure we have a good supply of fresh dill.
Yeah, I should try to grow that here. I don't know if the sun would just scorch it, but
I know you can buy fresh dill at some grocery stores and stuff. Yeah, I've bought it. I do it in my mashed potatoes.
Yeah, you can. You just have to search for it a little bit.
And I don't know if this might come up later, but if you go to Sweden in August, you should try to attend a crayfish party, or as they're called, kräftskivor. So the Swedish word for crawfish is kräfta. And kräftskiva just means crayfish, and then tabletop. So skiva just means tabletop because it was served originally on a tabletop. That's where you'd put all the food, like a smorgasbord.
How do you spell that? It sounds just like consonant.
Kräftskiva, K-R-A with 2 dots, whatever that's called. F-T-S-K. I can't even spell out things in English.
Don't worry. I'm terrible at spelling, so it was just one of those things where I can't even say it, let alone I wouldn't be able to spell it. So Kräftskiva.
Kräftskiva, yeah.
That's with a Russian accent.
Yeah, well, it was very hard. Now, the lakes, how did you guys adjust to dill in your diet every single day, every single meal, in your toothpaste flavoring?
Right.
I can't say that we necessarily were super exposed to dill. I mean, obviously, when you have some of the traditional dishes at some of those times of year, then you have it, obviously. But I don't think we had tons of dill things, but
It was new for me though. I
Yeah.
never had it before, as much like as it was present in their cuisine.
yeah. But when we moved there, it was actually kind of towards the end of August when we did move there. So it was
The Kräftskiva was our first party, Swedish party, and introduction to Swedish culture as Americans in a different country.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely within the
Yeah.
first couple weeks we were there. We went to a big block party, Kräftskiva celebration. It was
Got exciting really
Yeah.
fast.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so Kräftskiva are done. I mean, like we mentioned, they're done in August, and you do them. You probably do a couple of them. One with maybe your close friends. Sometimes companies will have one. Sometimes your neighborhood will have one, like Brand and Julianne went to. We typically just did one with friends and family. And you don't just eat crayfish. I mean, that's just one of the things on the table. So typically you'll have some crayfish, but you'll have some breads, usually baguettes, a green salad, and then a cheese pie.
Yeah.
And it's a very specific pie made out of a specific cheese in Sweden. And all that together just comes this amazing meal.
Now, specific cheese, is it from cows? Is it from goats? Is it
It's from
sheep?
cows. It's from cows in the very north of Sweden. And I don't know what it would call. I mean, it's a hard cheese, and it's pretty strong. It's not like a Gruyere, but it's similar in a way. Yeah, I mean, it's just unique to that town in Sweden, and I mean, they sell it all over Sweden.
Västerbottens.
Yeah, Västerbottenost. And you can actually, if you're in Salt Lake City, you can find some through the Swedish Heritage Society that imports it. I don't know if U.S. Customs is aware of that. So.
All right, so we talked a little about what you guys eat at these crayfish. But what else is associated with these? Are there ancient traditions? Are there Nordic? I don't know. Is Sweden a Nordic country, or is it?
Yeah, so it's a Nordic country, and like a lot of Swedish traditions, we'd like to think that they're older than they are, but I think most crayfish traditions are probably from the 50s and 60s onward. It's like, we think of the Christmas we celebrate as very modern, but it's like 50% Coca-Cola stuff that they made up.
Interestingly enough, though, I have a good Finnish friend here in the United States, and we were talking about this, and she had never heard of these kind of parties with crayfish.
Oh.
In Finland, they don't celebrate these crayfish parties, but other Scandinavian countries I've heard do. Is that right?
I think Norway has it. It's newer there, and I'm sure they're probably just copying Sweden. And Finland,
little brother.
Finland, the classic little brother. And Finland apparently has it, but only in the Swedish-speaking region.
Okay.
So there's a region of Finland that is basically Sweden. Like they speak Swedish. I mean, it's like Sweden with an accent. And they apparently do them. I've never been to one there. But I mean, as big as the crayfish are at the Kräftskiva, the alcohol is probably as big of a deal. So people will get together not just to eat a bunch of crayfish, but also to drink as neighbors and friends and colleagues.
Now, is it a local brew? Is it a Swedish moonshine, or is it just
more of the
anything they
latter?
can get?
It's brännvin and snaps, which brännvin is I don't know what that is. It's very, very high alcohol content wine, and snaps is just basically vodka. Sweet. Yeah. So they get. Depends on what kind of crayfish party you go to, but a lot of them end in more or less chaos, or they could.
They could.
Yeah.
They could.
It's not out of the norm that a crayfish party ends with
Fisticuffs.
everyone being extremely drunk.
Most of the world, that's a big part of partying. But I think the best part of a party is being with friends, being with family, and enjoying each other. So.
Yeah, and that's what we did growing up. So our house was much more about the crayfish than anything else, really.
So one of my favorite things, though, that I thought was pretty awesome was the attire that everybody wears when you go to one of these crayfish parties. You go there, and in each place setting, there's nice large bib that you wear, and you also have hats, and there's hanging moons and hanging paper suns and hanging paper crayfish. It's a pretty festive environment.
Now, quick question. You were saying all these hanging decors,
Yeah.
are they, people get together and they make them? Or is it, hey, my grandma made this 60 years ago. It's passed down from generation to generation.
I think it's pretty disposable, don't you
Yeah,
think?
you buy it at the grocery store and hang
Yeah.
up. I mean, they're like paper lanterns almost, and you'll just get rid of them afterwards.
Also, the one I know that the big one, the big block party one we went to right when we moved there was all outside. It was just kind of it was outside in someone's backyard or something, if I remember right. And we just had tables out there, and kids were running around. Is that pretty typical, Marcus? Where it's like kind of like an outdoor event, or
Yeah, you'll have it outdoors.
Weather permitting.
Yeah, I mean you'll do it unless it's really raining. Even if it's cold, you'll do it outdoors because that's really a big part of it too.
There seemed to be a whole ritual and tradition on how you eat the crayfish. There was a lot of sucking going on. There was a lot of
Got to get the head juice.
got to get the head juice. They, eyes eaten, and, very technical. They're tiny little lobster looking creatures, and they, have a way of cracking it open with both hands and pulling out the intestines and then eating the yellow and the red insides. And there's very little meat, but it's a lot of work for such a little
So the nice
delicacy.
the nice thing with crayfish is that the shell's so soft that you don't really need any. It's not like when you eat lobster, you need all these, or crab, and you need all these tools.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can just use your hands to get crayfish open. So yeah, you'll eat the actual tail. That's where the most of the meat is. You'll eat the claws, and then I will go as far as I'll just suck the juice out of the main sort of shell. But my grandfather, he will clean that thing out. I mean, ice and pretty much everything. And there's some things that he'll dispose of, but so what we'll do too after we're done is if you take everything that's left over, the intestines and the shells, you can make a really nice soup out of that. So you boil everything, and then you can really extract all the flavor from that. So it's also very Swedish to try to use as much of the animal, or in this case, I guess,
sea creature.
Sea creature. So as much of the animal or sea creature, crustacean, as possible. So you're not wasting all these resources.
A lot of times the sucking is like really loud, and so if you're not used to it, it's kind of like takes you back. Like, oh, it's kind of shocking.
I guess that's what we're doing it. Yeah.
It's a little bit savage in a way, but then everything's so proper, and so everything's kind of they eat really well, and they know what they're doing. They know it's actually not that easy to break open a crayfish with your hands, but they're used to it, and so that's what they do.
There's a little bit of a learning curve to snapping one in half.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, basically. But it's actually really, other than, using every part, it's actually really ritualistic and proper, I would say.
Right. And because there's not that much food in it, you don't, your plate has a section of crayfish, but you don't try to get full off of eating crayfish, because then you'd have to eat, a whole carton for yourself. And so you just have maybe 5 to 10 crayfish, but then the rest of it is bread or a salad or this cheese pie. And so it's not the main course, but it's something that, kind of adds some flavor.
Going off of what Deanne said too, there's a certain tidiness with that ritual. One plate I had seen of a woman eating, several crayfish. She had arranged beautifully the heads in a circle, like in a semicircle on her plate. And all the other parts of the crayfish were pushed up against those heads. And then she had a neat little tidy space where she would continue breaking and eating and getting into her crayfish.
When I think of, I always think of crawfish, like the crawfish boils, and they are extremely not tidy at all. And it seems like kind of a bit of a free-for-all in those situations. But maybe that's a different culture, and that's a different way of eating those. So
those sounds, too, that Deanne was talking about, one video that I just saw on YouTube today when I was looking at some of the true Swedes in Sweden, celebrating this party. The gentleman you'd hear this noise, and it's almost a rhythmic sound going on around the table with, how they're eating and sucking out those juices. Pretty awesome.
It's a musical.
Yes.
And you can, fortunately, because we live close to an IKEA, But you can actually, you don't have to be in Sweden necessarily just to do a crayfish party. You can have them, depending on where you live in the U.S., you can have them here as well. So you can buy crayfish that are cooked in this salt solution and are flavored with dill, and do your own thing. So all you need is that, some bread like a baguette, and then the cheese pie, and you're good.
Don't forget the dill potatoes. Dill something. Don't forget dill
new
something.
potatoes sometimes.
Yeah, new potatoes is typically early summer, so you'll pick them before they're actually like fully grown, and so that's more of a midsummer thing. And if anyone in Utah makes or knows where to find new potatoes, let me know, because I've been looking for years. Oh, you know,
Potato farmers maybe in Idaho.
yeah. All you do is you just harvest them early when they're still really small.
And they're so tasty. That's awesome.
Butter and some dill on them.
One thing that we noticed when we went to this party at the lake's house, they handed us a book of songs, and they mentioned that there was a song that you have to start out with, and there was certain kind of ritualistic things that you had to do with the songs and the food and the drinking and how you toast. And so can you kind of get into that, and if there's any significance to that?
Yeah, sure. So typically, I mean, so there's, I guess, really three big components. There's the actual crayfish, the drinking, and then the singing. So people will get songbooks or little papers printed out with some songs. And what you'll do is, before you have a shot of schnapps, everyone will sing a song. And there's a couple of schnapps songs, as they call them, that people will sing. And so you'll sing it as a group, and then you'll do the shot. But also when you do a toast, and this is not just for crayfish parties, but anytime you do a toast in Sweden, it's everyone raises their glasses. You don't necessarily clink them or tap them together. But you just raise them up and you look everyone in the eye, and then you have a sip, look around the table, look everyone in the eye, and then put it down. And then you can finish it if you want to. So there's this kind of ritual when you toast, which works if everyone is from Sweden. But I remember working at a company where there were some Americans and other people from other countries, and it was funny because they would clink them and then just down the whole thing, which is fine. It was just every Swede is very proper, and they were just, what's going on here?
Yeah, they look around like, wait, this is not how it's done, you know.
They're drinking too fast.
You're not following the protocol.
So it's not a drinking game, is what you're telling me.
No, the toast is just like, it's just very proper. Yeah, but the songs become part of the drinking game, because you sing the song and then you have the drink.
And I've heard that there is a first initial song that everyone sings at these parties, correct? Is there generally, or is there?
That's what I saw. That's what because I didn't speak Swedish when we first moved there, so I didn't really recognize the song. But when I was reading up and studying about this, the general consensus among Swedes is that Helan Går is the first song that they sing. And
I think that might be right. I know it's probably the most famous song.
Yeah.
And what does Helan Går mean? Or what does that, I mean, what's the translation?
And so the guy that was talking about it, he said, well, in this case, with this song, they want you to drink the whole shot all at once. Otherwise, you'll offend your host and not be invited back. So Helan, is that everything? Does that mean all? No. What is it?
Helan Går.
What does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's old Swedish. So it sounds right.
That's what he said. I mean, you're
Swedish.
I barely speak any Swedish, and definitely not old Swedish.
Well, I kind of want to hear this song. Can somebody sing it? Anybody?
Helan Går.
All right, Marcus.
All right.
I just want to hear a little bit of it.
I might break your microphone. Not by the loudness, but by the... All right. Helan Går. Wait. This is like not real lyrics. Helan går, sjung hopp för alla lallan lej. Helan går, sjung hopp för alla lallan lej. Och den som inte helan tar, han heller inte halvan får. Helan går. And then you drink it. Sjung hopp för alla lallan lej. That was
great.
Excellent. That was excellent.
You can tell that, one, singing is not my forte, and two, I didn't do a whole lot of the drinking at these Anyway, it's a lot of fun when everyone's singing and yelling and kind of stomping.
Yeah. So the other thing I think is always interesting is when you start, if you walk into a different culture and experience some of their celebrations. So I'm a little curious to hear what the lakes had to say kind of coming into it when you lived there. And then maybe Deanne can comment on that also if she comes back. So, but like, how did you guys, what did this look like to you when you first moved there?
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess it was, kind of a wild new experience, I guess, because I never been to one of those before, and we were just kind of barely immersing in the in the culture and getting settled there. But at the same time, it was just it was a lot of fun, and the Swedish culture, a lot of it is kind of very reserved. Like when I think back about some of the time there, and I was going to school, so I'd be on the I'd be on the subway, and you could be on a completely packed subway, and it's dead silent because no one's talking to each other. You just kind of mind your own business. You do your own thing.
Really? That's so weird.
Even neighbors who have lived, decades next to each other in apartments or homes, they really are
Just
very
kinda
private.
keep to
They're very
themselves.
private. I think the thing that really struck us so much was how friendly and warm and welcoming they were at this party when we came there. We're the foreigners, and they were very eager to show us their drinking ritual, even though that wasn't our thing so much. But like, they were very. It was a great introduction to Swedish culture. I think that was probably my favorite party that we had in Sweden while we were there. I was really struck by.
Yeah, and it was just such a clash with like the typical with the typical everyday thing where it's just like, well, I just keep to myself, do my thing, and this was a time where where everyone sort of kind of was more open, at least in the neighborhood. I'm sure the one we went to, I'm sure these people lived next to each other for a long time, but everyone was just out and much more open than typical, and it was just a lot of fun.
I remember this neighborhood. It also had several year long tradition, standing tradition of a pie or dessert contest. So they
along with the crayfish
this,
party.
yeah, this particular group of Swedes, and I thought it was pretty cool.
Kind of their own tradition among the traditions. So that's cool.
But beware of the fruit punch. My son, who was 3 years old at the time, got some punch and didn't realize that it was pretty spiked. So
there was two punches,
right.
And there was the kid's punch, and there was the other punch. So I think he actually got some of the wrong punch bowl one time.
Yeah,
he knew.
Right.
And that's pretty typical. Not that the kids will drink out of the wrong punch bowl, but that at these parties, whether or not it's with friends or neighbors, that it becomes kind of a potluck. Like someone brings the cheese, someone brings different parts of the ingredients. And so what I was going back to Swedes being pretty reserved, which is true. I think they are pretty aware of that, and don't necessarily always want to be that reserved, but it's just tough to not be. And so you get a little bit of alcohol in them, and they just really open up because they don't really want to be that reserved.
Well, and it is true. I mean, even us, Americans are very like anti-reserved or whatever.
Maybe
very,
to a fault.
Very open and stuff like that. But I think even us, as you're there long enough, you sort of get accustomed. Well, this is just kind of how it is. I remember thinking when we came back, one of the times we came back and people started saying hello to us on the street, and we were like, why are they talking to us?
What's wrong with them?
Yeah. So it is easy to get, just to sort of kind of fall in line with just kind of how the culture is. So
that is very interesting. Okay, well, thanks for sharing that. Just kind of one last follow-up question. So it would be neighborhoods that would kind of do these things, or is it just a couple of
neighborhoods, friends, families?
Okay.
Sometimes colleagues at work. It just kind of depends.
Just depends.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like growing up, I was in a basketball team, and the parents of us kids in the basketball team, they would all get together and have
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So just whoever wants to get together.
Just whoever wants to get together.
I'm sure there were multiple parties going on throughout the months of August and September.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That sounds fun. So, okay, well, I don't want to keep you guys. We probably should wrap up, but I want to say thank you so much for being on and sharing your the history of these crayfish parties. It is so interesting. I do want to say that I know Marcus already kind of mentioned this, but IKEA does have kind of everything so that you can throw one yourself. And I think it's a good reason to throw a party, I think. Sit around at a table and chat and have food. And
yeah, here it's not as much, well, it's a chance to sort of enjoy the last few days of summer. Here, the summer lasts longer. But, it could be a way to enjoy the last few days of summer before you go back to school or work or something like that.
yeah, that's perfect.
And IKEA, it makes it pretty easy. That party that I think we got that from IKEA, right?
We did, yeah.
Yeah, because we saw it, and when we invited you guys over, it just had everything. It had tablecloths and stuff to hang,
Yeah, seriously,
and the bibs and
and
everything,
hats.
and the hats. Yeah, it was all in one. It was great. You didn't have to go hunting for any of it. It was all there.
I think if you do buy the frozen ones at IKEA, it's important to just prepare a little bit, not too much, but because the crayfish come frozen, you don't want to thaw them in a hurry, because that takes away a lot of the sort of the texture and the flavor. So thaw them in the fridge, and that might take a day or two.
Oh,
Because
okay.
it's a solid ice block when you get it. So prepare just a few days in advance, so you don't have to try to hurry up and thaw them or eat half frozen crayfish.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it definitely will change the texture if you do it too quickly or too slowly. So
You probably have to add the dill too. It doesn't have. Does it have dill with or does it have?
it came with the dill.
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay, you guys got a party in a pack already. So, so once again, thank you so much. You guys were. This was delightful to talk to you, and I want to throw a party now, and I feel like this was probably a nice little peek into some Scandinavian culture that I didn't know about before. So, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us. And this is just the beginning of the food seasons that you have in the fall in Sweden. There's going to be moose season after this and mushroom season.
Moose season, mushroom season.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
I have to come back for some more podcasts.
I know, seriously. I'm like, mushrooms. We can talk mushrooms all day.
Oh,
So, okay, once again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Our podcast is brought to you by our awesome and food-loving sponsor, IKEA. So as summer's coming to an end, IKEA hosts their annual Swedish crayfish party. We've kind of already been talking about it, and it's an all-you-can-eat buffet. And at least in Utah, ours is going to be Friday, September 16th. And I believe actually, if you want to check at your local IKEA, they will probably have it around that same time too. So just check it out. Lee, the crayfish party, apparently we have already talked about it, but it's a Swedish tradition and it dates back to the 1800s. So like Marcus mentioned, crayfish fishing was limited to August and September, and that's why they are having it right now. So it's just kind of a last hurrah, and IKEA is putting this fun little party on, and it should be a lot of fun.
Oh, IKEA can host a wonderful party. We've been to one before, and it is an all-you-can-eat buffet. And it's not just crayfish. They're going to have their whole normal, regular menu. They're going to have the Swedish meatballs. They're going to have mashed potatoes.
And they have that cheese pie.
They have the cheese pie.
That's a pretty traditional thing, is this cheese pie.
Yeah.
So,
and one thing that I know that you really do like, they have that smoked salmon with the mustard tart sauce.
Man, that stuff is dang good.
So,
I'm just saying. So they're going to have a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah. Guys, go pick up a piece of furniture that you do need, but also go get yourself an all-you-can-eat buffet in the style of traditional Swedish parties.
Exactly. So once again, it's going to be Friday, September 16th at participating stores nationwide. And they have tickets available for adults and kids. And like I said, it's an all-you-can-eat crayfish buffet, you guys. So it's kind of fun. You get to sit around, you get to sit and eat. And if you are an IKEA family member, you get a discounted rate. So check it out. Check in with one of their food associates and they can kind of give you more information on that. So kind of the sooner the better. And like we mentioned earlier, is that this episode and the next episode, crawfish or crawdads or mud bugs, that episode is going to be part of a quiz that Hungry Squared is putting on together with IKEA. And whoever answers the most out of that quiz, then will win a little prize pack with IKEA / Hungry Squared. Obviously, if there's a tie, they're going to have to draw a winner. So
yeah. Now this is IKEA of Draper or all the IKEAs?
So IKEA Draper for sure, but please check your participating stores wherever you may be, because they will likely have some more information. And it looks like that same day, the Friday, September 16th that's going to be at all participating stores. So
awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be so fun. Okay, we'll see you there.
See you guys. Let's have a food fight.
Food fight, food fight, food fight, food fight. It's
This is the segment where you can email us with your relationship questions relating to food. You can email us at hungrysquared@gmail.com.
Disclaimer, we are in no way professional relationships experts, but you should totally listen to us anyway. If you need professional help, please seek it out.
Food fight, the food fight segment of the show. Here we go.
Winter,
Yeah,
this week's question is from, I don't know who you've got in front of you.
I do. Yeah, we got a listener mail, and this one is not necessarily a relationship question, but it is a food-related question.
It is between us, though, a relationship question.
Yeah, I think if Sharon was here, she would have a lot to say about it as well, because it's pretty funny. So this is from Tina, and she says, "Hi, ladies. Your podcast inspired me to buy an Instant Pot. I've had it for almost a month, and it's still in its box. I feel overwhelmed and clueless. What do I do with it? Any cookbook or blog suggestions? Thank you in advance, Tina."
Tina, I will take this one.
You will.
It is in the perfect spot and where it belongs.
No, it doesn't.
Taped up in a box.
No, Lee. You guys, this is coming from somebody who was a skeptic. Is a skeptic.
I use a lot more than Winter does.
Yeah, he does now. Okay, so Tina, when we bought our Instant Pot, I think it was during like Black Friday last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we bought it and it came and it was exciting and...
We had an unveiling.
No. It sat.
Oh, yeah.
It totally sat in the corner unboxed.
For a couple weeks.
At least. I think it was more than that. I think it was a month before we got around to it.
It was the happiest time of my life. And then it's all just gone downhill.
And Lee, who is a trained chef, was a huge skeptic. So you guys, we created a Facebook Live video and we made eggs. We boiled some eggs. Lee, we had a
my eggs tasted just as good.
They did. And I think mine would have been faster if I had known to do a quick release. So this is what I would suggest, Tina. I love the Instant Pot. It is really intimidating, like any new gadget. It can be intimidating because nobody really wants to read through the manual and everything like that. So this is what I did. I just told Lee, I'm going to just make some eggs. And they do recommend doing a water test. I think that's what we read in the manual is doing a water test.
Yeah. And
tell us what that is, Lee.
I think the water test just makes sure all the seals and it seals and locks and releases properly.
Yeah.
So it's not.
There's nothing in it. You just stick water in it,
yeah.
And then you just let it go for a few minutes, I think.
Yeah, it was like 3 minutes.
And then you bring it down so that you can make sure, the valve works, the seals seal up, I guess.
And also, when you're using it and you clean it, you take this a rubber gasket seal out and you clean that. And you have to make sure that's put back properly. So when you learn to do it and you do that water test and you understand, hey, this has to be properly put back or else it won't seal.
Yeah, exactly. So I would just say, open the box up, Tina. You're going to be fine. Pull it out. Even if you get it out of the box, that helps because then you can see it. And then I would just say, if you don't want to do the water test, we did eggs.
Yeah.
Because the eggs are
10
not.
Eggs or something
yeah, the
like
eggs
that.
are not in the water or anything. We put it on that little metal wire rack thing. And so it was totally fine to do it that way. I mean, and if you ruin the eggs, you've ruined a handful of eggs and it's no big deal. So, but this is where I would recommend. So there's an awesome Facebook group. It's called the Instant Pot Community. And I love that group because if I need some ideas for dinner, we can type something in and somebody usually has an idea. The other place that I've kind of really just enjoyed is Paint the Kitchen Red. Our friend Nina, she has given basically a nice little starter guide on how to unbox your Instant Pot and how to get started. So that's really kind of nice step-by-step guide. And then I love pressurecookrecipes.com. It's a couple that loves to do Asian recipes and they have pretty photography. And then they're just really, once again, nice step-by-step ways of doing things. And then they give you ways to adapt it to whatever machine you have. They do talk pressure cookers. I think a lot of people right nowadays have an Instant Pot. So they obviously give a little bit of push that way. But yeah, I would just say, give the eggs a try. Do some boiled eggs. We like to do 2 minutes manual on high, and then we do a quick release.
Tina, I don't boil my eggs in the Instant Pot.
Winter
does.
I do because it's just easier that way. Lee's snooty. Like, he's kind of snooty. He does it on the stovetop still. So
Well, I like a soft boil.
Yeah, he
I like
does.
a medium boil. So.
And then the next thing I would do is probably try something like, because if you need something like a pulled pork or something like that.
So what I would do before even pork,
What do you think?
like the first 3 recipes we did were barbecue chicken.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And all it was is you got the chicken.
I think we did chicken thighs.
and
or drumsticks.
drums. And then it was just a barbecue sauce, and you pour. So you put a couple chicken pieces into the pot, pour barbecue sauce on top, seal it up, turn it on. I think it was for 8-9 minutes or something.
Yeah, it's not terribly long. And then we did natural release, which is letting the valve pop down. And that should be another 10-15 minutes. So it really, it's really pretty. That one's really easy because it really was
easy.
like 2 ingredients. It was chicken and your barbecue sauce, whatever it was.
Yeah, I think we even cut up an onion and put it in there.
Yeah,
with
just
it,
for fun.
Just
So,
for fun.
Yeah. One thing I just want to point out, Tina, though, is that even though a recipe says that it takes 10 minutes, like 10 minutes to cook, there is a period of time for it to go up to pressure. And then there's the cooking time, which is in this case would be 10 minutes. And then there's a releasing time as well. So whether that's a quick release, that's where you pop open the release valve and that decompresses in
2 minutes.
Yeah, less than that. Or if you do a manual, not manual release,
A natural.
a natural release, excuse me, then that could take, I don't know.
10 to 12 minutes.
Yeah. Lee's done a lot more of some of the
I have not.
longer. He has, you guys. Even though he
I talk bad about it,
he
but I
does.
use it.
He does. He uses it quite a bit. Sharon will not touch it with the 10-foot pole because she's worried about blowing things up still. But everybody, right? Am I right? It's so far hasn't blown up. So anyway, that's where I would say to start out. And it's okay. No judgment. It takes a long time to get things going sometimes. I think Lee's one of those people, if he likes his gadget, he'll just bust it out and give it a try. But I am hesitant sometimes. So don't you worry, Tina. It's okay. No judgment.
Tina, I judge.
No.
But you know me. I'm a hypocrite. I make fun of people for using it, but here I am using it myself.
He totally does. So, well, Tina, good luck. Let us know how things go. And hopefully the eggs turn out well. Yeah.
Hopefully you can boil some water in your Instant Pot. Well, thanks for joining us today for our show. You can find us at hungrysquared.com, on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music.
You guys, we totally love it when we get mail, especially if it's a food fight question. So we would love for you to send us something at hungrysquared@gmail.com, and we're excited to answer those on the air.
You guys know how the food fight questions work. It doesn't have to be serious. It doesn't have to be, I'm breaking up with this person because they can't set a table place. Whatever. Fun stuff, serious stuff.
We want to hear it, so send it on in to hungrysquared@gmail.com. So, and join us next week for our next episode of Food Nerdery.
Okay. Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Hungry squared, yeah, hungry squared.